Good evening, Danvers. Welcome to the June 20th Topics of the Town News presentation from DCAT facilities here in Danvers. Great place to work, great place to report from. Today we have John Toomey and Matt Duggan.
Hello, Danvers.
And
Hello.
we have come together to report on what's going on in town. One of the things that I like to report on right in the beginning is, we have been notified that, and it was this week, Bob Osgood died. We want to send our condolences to the family. And Bob has been a fixture in town until his, medical conditions. He's been very active as a fireman.
He was the longest-serving town meeting member. I think 47 years.
47 years. That's not even old.
Maybe longer. Actually, more than 50, because I think his name is on the wall there.
That's right. So that's one sad story we have to report. We appreciated Bob all along, and he's been a fixture in our town for a long time. Another story that has been reported in the Salem Evening News, as a matter of fact, on June 19th, Wednesday, yesterday, is our young Ron Parsons is retiring. I remember him coming in back when my daughters were in high school, and my wife was the music director at that time, but interim. So Ron came in and he's developed a very, very good program, and it's been very exciting to see what's been happening with the music program, the drama program. So he's been a fixture, and we wish him luck on his retirement. Just remember, retirement, Ron, is not going to sit behind, the TV. You're going to be more busy than you've ever been, because you always find something good to do. So, going forward, I would just like to report a very, interesting but considerable story that we have experienced during this last town meeting. And education budget controversy was developed. The debate was going on. However, it has been alleviated for some reason, but I would like to keep it going here, because budget for the school committee, and the remainder is hidden as a cost that the town picks up. The actual budget for the schools, controlled by the school committee, is about $43 million. That's what the school committee. And I have never in the last 30 years seen the school committee or the school department return any money to the town that they have not spent as free cash like most of our departments do. So spend as you go. That's the motto in the school department. Our second piece of the education budget is the Essex Tech budget, which is roughly $2.5 million, and we have 150 students that are attending Essex Tech by choice and by selection of their qualifications. The other piece is roughly $16 or $17 million that is being devoted by the DPW and other departments in the town hall that provide services to our schools. Facilities maintenance, grass cutting. We have the greenest fields in the North Shore. The other piece that has never been, addressed is the debt service. There are millions of dollars that are being dedicated to the schools because the buildings have been built and the debt service continues. So every year there is a $75 million payment for education. And the debate that was going on was that maybe the schools are not challenging our students enough, or they're not arriving at the right education level. But now, all of a sudden, we hear from the Board of Selectmen, in their wisdom, are re-energizing the position to go to a debt exclusion for the Smith School. Now, that has been going on for 7-8 months now. At the town meeting, when the school was approved, the statements that were made is that we're going to do it on a 30-year loan, which is a bond issue. And the bond issue should be a declining level of funding every year, instead of what they have done with the high school, which is a level funding to alleviate the initial payments of the debt service, because they didn't want to challenge the town government to be able to come up with the money. So, Matt, you have gone to the Board of Selectmen's meetings. You've been present and listening to all of this. What do you think is going on?
Just back to the Smith School funding. So when the debate was going on in the fall, and also this spring before we went to town meeting, there really wasn't a lot of discussion about the funding per se. It was just, here's the plan for the school, so you're either for a new school or you're not. I think the 30-year bond approach was kind of maximizing the revenues that we have. We didn't have the option of really going to a 20-year funding scheme, because there's not enough incoming revenue to cover that. So the Smith School, as it stands now, will be level. The bond payments will be level, just like they are at the high school. So there won't be any peak years. It will just go out into maybe 2050 in terms of funding. And so that is kind of handcuffs future town government in terms of flexibility. If there's a need to repair other schools or to purchase things like fire trucks or hire more teachers, we really won't have the capability to do that.
I think we do. The problem is that this is a management problem. It is not a funding problem, because we have been receiving enough revenue to support the 30-year bond issue that the town manager has totally blessed, and that's what he was publishing in the newspapers.
Yeah, we can cover the 30 years, but then we don't really have any excess funds available for improvements in other places, like upgrades to Sandy Beach or LaBelle's Grove. So we're kind of constricted about what we can do in the future.
Well, that's what
Go ahead, John.
the impression I get is that, well, basically, as you're saying, we're spending most of our town funds on education. And so that, to me anyway, sort of leaves the impression that the average other department, fire, police, maintenance, sewer, are they getting what they really need? And are we spending too much on the education?
Well, that was a part of the debate that was going on, and specifically on the results of this investment that has been made over the years. Nothing has changed over the last 10, 15 years.
But
It's been growing.
for 11, well, this will be the 12th year in a row, taxes have gone up. In other words, we keep taking more money by taxing the general public out there, and we keep spending more money. This doesn't make sense to me. Somewhere along the line, there should be a more or less a firm budget with limits and so forth over a period of many years. And I don't really see that. The other thing that disturbs me is education, to me, is what we teach the children.
Right.
And it seems to be here in this town, our emphasis is on buildings and maintenance and everything except the education or the teaching of the kids. And I'm getting the impression we're not doing that great. The kids are doing more or less medium, middle of the road.
Mediocre.
Well, that's a word I've heard, and I really don't know how to make that judgment. Is it mediocre? Anybody have an opinion?
Well, I think it could always be better, but
Well, I think a lot of the times when people speak about education in this town is they speak about education that was going on 25, 30 years ago. They're living on their laurels. And the problem is that every year there's some educator's innovation of how to teach, what to teach. The state is getting involved. Unfunded liabilities are always there because the state imposes certain things. And I grant them, the teachers are there, they can teach. The problem is that they have their hands tied behind their back because they have to provide these results. However, the school committee, even admitting at the finance committee meetings, is that they only challenge them to 50% quality. So as long as they achieve 50%, that's great. That's not what it's about.
yeah,
They have to be challenged to the max.
sure.
So what's your report on debt exclusion? What was the discussion and how did that come across?
This was a few weeks ago. So the selectmen now are contemplating a kind of hybrid. So initially, several months ago before town meeting, the Smith School was either a 30-year bond or which incurs a high level of interest payments. It is the baseline is a $32 million cost for the school, and then another $20 million in interest over that 30 years. The interest payments could be reduced by going to a 20-year bond. So I think the current thinking is a hybrid, maybe somewhere in the middle. But it still would include a request to the voters for some type of debt exclusion for this specific project for the life of whatever the bond is for the Smith School.
And just to reiterate the point that was made 25 years ago, no more taxes. We have a 2.5 limit that's been imposed by state law, and we need to live within our budget. This town is very proud of the fact that they have not gone to a 2.5 override or a debt exclusion because it's been managed better than average. However, it seems to be falling apart now, and the Board of Selectmen don't realize that what they're doing is they're sending us on the path of what Marblehead is doing. Marblehead is doing everything by 2.5 overrides because they got the first one through. So now every major project, 2.5 override, debt exclusion, whatever. I don't think those people even know what their tax is every year, except for the fact that they get a bill and they pay it. So I don't think we want to get into that. So What's your opinion or your conclusion of where they're going? Are they going to a hybrid, you said?
Well, for right now, John had mentioned that taxes have been going up over the past 10 years, and that's because the value of our properties, our homes, has consistently increased year over year. We're in this kind of real estate bubble. So as the assessed values go up, our taxes go up, and the town has this increased amount of revenue that they feel they need to spend.
But I have to disagree with that. That the value of your property going up doesn't necessarily mean that your taxes are going to go up. It's the bloody selectmen who vote to increase the taxes.
The
And
tax
they're doing
rate.
that because they keep spending all the money they
Yeah,
get.
well, that's the point. So as the excess values go up, they're going to tax to the limit. So that's, I think, right, what we're seeing.
No, what they're going to do, and this is from historical information. I've been there. What happens is the assessed valuation goes up, and the selectmen lowered the tax rate per thousand by pennies, and they claim that as a tax reduction. But the value of the tax still goes up
Yeah.
because the value of your property. Now, when the assessments go down, then the selectmen have to increase the tax rate. The thing is that we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. And that's been expressed at town meeting, at the selectmen's meeting, and they don't get it. So that's my point.
I understand.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll move on to my favorite subject and John's favorite subject, the DPW garage. And what I just like to report on this piece of information is that the DPW garage was funded with a warrant article for $475,000, and it passed town meeting without even a question, without even a hint of any
No
information.
discussion, yeah.
None, nobody even asked the question.
Well, I've been down there recently, and I see it looks like a storage area for snowplows.
Well,
So-
it is right now,
Yeah,
but that's
so-
where the office building is going to go.
Well,
There is a bid that's been submitted, and I understand that the town manager is in the process of signing a contract for the building of the office building. However, I asked the question. Last year, before the town manager authorized dumping the contaminated dirt on that field, there was a bid in place, and it was a bid that was within the limits of what they had to spend. But no, they went and asked town meeting to approve using water and sewer rate receipts for that building. The problem is we're going to get to another story later on, but that price was roughly $1.2 million. Well, I asked for the bid prices that have been submitted, and they range from 1.25 up to 1.7. So their first choice is 1.25, then there's 1.27, 1.380, I think. So there's three lowest bidders.
they're close, yeah.
So they were very close. So why does the town, in their wisdom, or the DPW in their wisdom, go out to town meeting and ask for more money when the price is within their limits?
And plus, there hasn't been any real construction going on there.
There's no construction that's going on
For the
there.
past few years.
The
since-
demolition was only...
Yeah, well, the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to be.
No, it's not. See, what happened last year, they were claiming that by putting the dirt on that pile, they would not be able to build that building last fall because the dirt was there. So now the dirt is gone. The contamination supposedly is relieved from there because they put plastic on the ground. I mean, that dust went all over the place. But now what they're doing is the price is almost the same. However, there's options that they've put in there. There's a larger building and the original small building. They're choosing the larger building because they have money that has been authorized by town meeting, which is really ratepayer money that you and I pay for our water and sewer bills. So it's 1.25 million right now. I've asked the question of, why did you guys ask for the money? He says, well, that's just for contingency, just in case.
I think it's going to be more expensive the longer you wait because of the
It's done. It's done.
The
The quotes are in.
competition. Yeah.
The quotes
All
are
right.
in,
Okay.
and they're within the limits of what the original ones was, except for the fact that they added another $200,000.
Scope creep.
No, size creep. They just made it bigger. So
All right.
that's where we are with that. So now I have a story that is really very interesting. Water and sewer. If we can run clip 1 for water and sewer, I have, this is the meeting that was held on June 18th. Is the available reserves that we have in both water and sewer to date. This is the cash available
Yeah, so
for
I'm just
use.
thinking if he thinks he's gonna have, you're gonna have 1.5 at the end of June, right?
Between the two.
Yeah, I'm just talking, you're gonna have 1.5 in June.
Yeah, I just we make the distinction in talking about it because each one is a separate business by itself.
Yeah,
But
but
yes,
I wanted my commission how you
but
have
between
1.5.
the two of them, it will be
Yeah.
1.5.
Yeah, and if my memory serves me correctly, a couple town meetings ago, we had like a $3 million balance and the
Right.
town appropriated half of that, right, so they.
No,
Right. I thought
we showed a $3 million balance.
Yeah,
Then we found that there was an accounting error,
okay,
and that what we've been told, and so they went back and corrected the accounting error, and they had not charged capital projects to that. They'd been booked, was that right, Pete? So the
Yeah.
capital project had been booked, we thought they were all paid, we thought we had over $3 million in retained earnings.
yeah,
Where everything was planned, and then all of a sudden, we got the call last summer, 3 million is not correct, or last fall, it's only 1.5 million.
all right.
Correct.
So that set us back $1.5 million.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, do you typically, is the target typically to have 1.5 million in reserve?
It's typically 10%, with a minimum, which is how much, Pete? That's on water?
It would be. $10% would be $799,000.
Right,
About
so-
$800,000.
Right, so the 1.5 was still above what well above what the policy was. Policy's 790, which is 10%.
So what they're talking about there, and this is David Lane and the Water and Sewer Board, and there are 2 members left. Third member, John Mrozik, is no longer going to be on the board because he's basically retired. What they're talking about there is there's an accounting error. Accounting error. Where the heck did that come from? I've been attending every single one of these meetings for the last 2.5, 3 years. And this was supposed to have happened about 4 years ago. The accounting error is an error of $1.5 million. So what you'll see in the next clip is that what they're trying to do is the rates have been pretty stable. I believe last year was like 1.5 and 1.2% increases. And I even complain about that because they had money in the bank according to what the accounting record showed. But now all of a sudden they declared that there's an accounting error and now we're stuck with a $1.5 million deficiency. And again, this is not a revenue problem, this is a spending problem. That money was spent 2-3 years ago for projects that may have been needed, but could have been deferred if we knew that there was an error. They knew there was an error. So now what we're asking for, what the Water and Sewer Division is asking for, is an increase of 20%, well, it's 15 to 20% increase in the water rates. So look out, here we go. I've been preaching water rate creep for the last 5 or 6 years at town meeting, and I've always been criticized for bringing it up. Well, here it is. So clip number 2.
Oh, yeah, so it was.
Are you consistent with that or not consistent with that?
It was staying above the 10%. We were between 800,000 and 1.5 million.
Okay.
It was going back and forth between there
Yeah.
for many years.
Correct.
And if it would creep above, we'd have either drop the rate or have a more extensive capital program where you do more water mains.
Yeah.
And we had a pretty aggressive program planned for this year
Right. We talked about
based
that.
on the 3 million.
Right.
So now we're taking a hit out of that 1.5 this year.
Correct.
So what we are hearing, and I'll just interpret what you just heard, is basically they knew there was a deficit or an accounting error of $1.5 million, but they still went out in an aggressive capital improvement program. It was all funded from the water receipts. Maybe we shouldn't have spent all that money, and we haven't in many cases. There are projects that are on the books that money has been allocated for, like Mass Ave, water main replacement, Forest Fish Brook,
That's 1.5, I think.
yeah, and others that are being funded directly from the water receipts. The suggestions have been made at this meeting to maybe take those and put them on a bond issue.
Or even,
Spread the costs.
well, so it's business as usual, just full steam ahead and not try to maybe kind of curtail some of this work that's not absolutely necessary?
Well, we'll get to that in the next clip. But I'm telling you, Tuesday morning I attended the Electric Division, my favorite location of filming the meetings. And my next favorite was the Water and Sewer Board. I had a ball. But the thing is, all these suggestions have been made. However, go to clip 3.
Yeah, I'm troubled by I guess I'm troubled by how do we explain this to the citizens, right? Because we're held accountable at the end. They're gonna
And it's the manager. It's his job to provide us. The manager is driving the financial policies for us and do that.
Yeah.
It's his job to give those tools.
Yeah, so I'm really worried about that at the moment. And then I like the outlook which shows this isn't going in perpetuity, but I guess I'm just a little bit surprised that we didn't see the 18% coming. I don't recall us thinking that this was going to be that high. I mean, I don't recall us having some precursory talk about this and all of a sudden come in tonight and see us.
And what is this,
I didn't either.
last year, did we have a projection out like this that you provided?
Not that far.
No. And it also wouldn't.
So I got a little bit of sticker shock going on, so.
I do too. At budget time, we had some rough numbers, and we were talking when we went to Finance Committee about percentages lower than this. And it's, that, I think it's the sales number is the shocker.
So is this 20% increase, is it temporary, or is this kind of,
That's
to play
the
catch-up?
million-dollar question. It's a spike right now for next year. However, there's projections that are going to be increasing the water rates 3 to 4% after that. But the question that I could not get answered is it going to be the percent increases in the future will be based from the spiked rate or the current rate?
right.
And they don't want to talk about that. So the thing is, it's unfortunate that the Water and Sewer Division got themselves into a situation, and now what they're asking for is to be remedied by the ratepayers. The ratepayers, this is a management problem. This is not a rate or revenue problem. The thing is that if we do not have the money to spend on it, we either raise the rates or we don't do the project. And the thing is, a lot of these projects can be extended in time, stretched in time. They have a $10 million authorization right now for the replacement of water lines, which is appropriate. But it's a $10 million appropriation, but it's going to be spent on every year, maybe $2 million. And that's going to be put on a bond issue, which will cost during that year maybe $200,000.
Yeah, but that's a necessary work.
Absolutely. But the thing is that what they're doing now, and I don't envy their situation because it's very difficult to get out of. But the thing is, we need to have some management take control over
that's a
what's
lot of
going
money.
on.
That's not a few dollars.
No,
That's
it's not.
Huge difference.
And if you look at the surrounding towns, Salem, Peabody, even Beverly, I think their rates went up, yes, but they went up 3%,
Modestly,
2-3%. And the Peabody rates, I believe, are the lowest in the region.
That's MWRA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we up to? And the thing is, there's nobody from the public at those meetings. I'm the only one that shows up.
But you filmed it?
I raised, oh yes. Now, this Water and Sewer Board meeting was supposed to be a rate-setting meeting an hour after it started. So after long discussions, we had a deliberation between David Lane and the Water and Sewer Board that, hey, it's not going to go easy with that kind of an increase. We have to institute some management positions on how to disperse this load and solve this issue. Maybe the town manager needs to put up some money from the town to the DPW Water and
free
Sewer
cash.
Division. There's so much free cash floating around, I don't know where it's going.
Yep.
So,
Well, it shouldn't.
well,
The ratepayer shouldn't be penalized for a management
the
error.
meeting is now filmed, and I edited it today, and it should be online and on cable either tomorrow or Saturday.
All right.
And also, the rate-setting meeting right now has been deferred to June 27th, which is Thursday at 5:30 p.m. at 2 Borough Street. This is where people, the residents, the ratepayers, the people that are paying these bills should go and mob the place, because this is unbelievable of the level of increase that they're asking for. So watch the Water and Sewer Commission meeting. That should be on channel 36 or 41. It's one or the other on Verizon and 99 on Comcast. The other story, this is the end of that. I can't
Okay.
get
Let's
to
move
it
on.
anymore. Let's move on. The other meeting, which was on Tuesday morning at 8:30, was the electric company, my favorite meeting. And there was some success. The Municipal Light Board commissioners, in their wisdom, with the guidance from David Lane, DPW director, have decided to lower the fuel adjustment costs.
Surcharge, yeah.
However, I mean, it's such a big deal that it's a reduction. Great, it's on the path in the right direction. I like that. However, I asked the question, how much is this really going to save the resident? And on a 750 kilowatt hour bill, that's how we're measured, we're going to save $3. $3. There's
cup of coffee.
$21 million sitting in the bank right now in cash that's not even invested. But the electric company will not give the ratepayers a break. All they want to do is get the money in the
Stockpile
bank.
it.
It's not even invested. They don't even follow an investment policy. So the money is sitting there without growing. So that's a good story. I like that one. But it's still not enough. So I think we need to continue, and we should go to the next meeting, which is going to be on July 30th at 8:30 a.m. at 2 Borough Street. And you also have on the air a recording of the meeting that took place on June 18th. That's enough for me. John, you have a story in population growth and the immigration/growth.
Well, it's rather interesting. The overall, let's take it this way. Something like 82% of the cities and towns in Massachusetts in the past years have grown population-wise. Danvers has grown over 4% in the past year. Middleton is up 11%. Massachusetts overall is up over 5%. In other words, people are coming in. We're getting bigger. And it's rather obvious that this is one of the reasons that the selectmen are going for changing zoning. The overlay districts, the one that they put in on Maple and Locust and was it Hobart? That's a first step. The rest of downtown is going to it. By the time they get through, supposedly from all the way down from like Maple Locust Street all the way down to 128 is all going to be rezoned with the overlay district. And that means basically what you got there now is first level, first floor. Second, third floors are going to be apartments and condos. In other words, people will live there. In other words, the number of population is going to increase substantially. So it's rather interesting how they ran this thing through. The one or two big things that was rather obvious that they really didn't talk about, really didn't push when they were passing the zoning was traffic and parking downtown. I don't think there's anybody in this town who doesn't agree with me when I say that parking and traffic downtown especially is pretty tough. Traffic all over town is pretty tough. But the population growth, when you consider population is the standard method that you come up with your control of Congress, you come up with your state control and the legislature. And Essex County is one of the biggest, it's the third fastest growing county in Massachusetts. And it's also, population is one of the biggest factors in highway, health care, public transportation, education. All the money that you get back from the federal government and the state is usually based on population as one of the factors.
You want to go through clips?
Yeah, let's try, what is it?
4.
4. And this is,
An example of an expansion.
yeah, it's Franklin Street and School Street right at the corner. They're just building it. It's a great looking building. There isn't much space there, but it's going up. Let's take a look at 5. You got 5, the clip 5. Somewhere.
Well, in the meantime,
How about 6?
So this building here was actually discussed at the ZBA meeting this past Monday. It's by permit, a single-family home by right. So that meets all the setback and doesn't require any variances or special permits.
Well, if you drive around town, you see an awful lot of this going on. A building here, a building there. It's all part of the start. Oh, okay, here we are. This is downtown, obviously. It's
School. Yeah.
you can see what it's CVS and the church down there on the left. That's heading down towards the old fire station, and this gives you an average look of what we have now. You have some multiple story buildings and some. This is near
20.
the old.
20 Locust, Baby Shoe.
Yeah. And this is being all rebuilt, an increase in size and.
well, they added a story to it too.
Yeah.
So the issues here are threefold. You have no parking at this building, very little, if any. The second of all, your traffic congestion is tremendous across that whole intersection. This is in front of the fire station, the ambulance office, and the gas stations. That's going to be a nightmare. It's already a nightmare. And the third one is that parking does not exist on this site. And what they've been talking at the planning board when this proposal was being discussed is that they're going to devote space on the Hobart Street parking lot that we paid.
That's sort of optional. This site actually has parking there along the side of the building and also in the lot across the street behind the mobile station. So
Does
there
the
is-
lot belong to the
Yes,
building?
Yes, the lot across the street behind the gas station belongs to this building.
Well, I was told, and I
So-
was looking at the parking study, is that part or all of that lot and other lots are going to be permitted to be built on. So
Yeah, that is at the discretion of the planning
That's right.
board. So if I can just kind of, do you have some more to add for that? 'Cause
Well, I
wanted
just
to kind
want
of
to add just a couple of
piggyback
points.
off of that.
As residents of this town, when you see this, and they talk about population growth and so forth, right now, Danvers and most people who live here look at it as a nice town to live in. But if you continue to have this population growth, within 10 or 15 years, if it continues at the present numbers, we could be
Salem or Peabody?
Salem or, well, not
Oh, look at
Peabody,
the city of Danvers.
Danvers or Salem.
Yeah.
They're up around 50,000.
Well-
And we're at 27,000. But what I'm getting at is, do you really want to live in Salem? Do you really want to live in Beverly? I mean, think of the traffic and the parking as you have it now and what's coming up. And the other thing is as you increase the population, obviously you're going to increase the use of water, electricity, sewer. So you're talking about the rates going up, the rates will go up even higher. And what about more people coming in with children? Education, your school costs are going to go up. And the biggest factor you have in the town budget is schools. So this is all, when you get the population here and you have the selectmen trying to educate the public that this will be good for you, the real factor is it's going to be expensive as heck for you. So think about it twice and get a hold of your representatives and tell them what you think.
Yep.
Yeah.
So can I just piggyback
Yes,
off
no,
of that?
you go right into your items. We'll come back to the
Okay, so-
planning.
So just to kind of expand on what John has mentioned about growth. So growth is inevitable. We can't control the private property rights. So if there's a couple of slides that I have of Pond Street. This is an example of what happens when the developers are allowed. Yep, so this was what Pond Street looked like a few years ago. This is the corner of Holton Street and Pond, around the corner from the library. So this ranch house was sold at auction to a developer for $460,000, and that's by right. That lot is only allowed 2 housing units. So if you can just move to what it looks like recently. This is the developer was giving a variance and a special permit. Originally was proposed 4-unit townhouse and was curtailed to only 3. So you can see what was sort of a suburban lot with a ranch house now is the density has increased quite a bit. And this is pretty much by right, but through a variance by the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals. And this is the kind of development we want to kind of have more control over. This was not what town meeting approved in the zoning bylaws. They don't want this type of density. And I have another example back to School Street that John had mentioned. That's on the corner of School and Franklin. There was a clip there with an empty lot. Yes, this is what this is on the corner of School and Franklin, across from Danvers Auto Body. The building that was here burned down in the early 80s, and since that time was vacant. It was sold off when the owner passed, and by right, the developer has built this monstrosity, and this is also by right. This is permitted as a single family. There were no variances, that meets all the setbacks for R1 district. But this past Monday at ZBA, the applicant wants to convert this into a 3-family. And that would require a special permit and a variance for front, side, and rear setbacks. Fortunately, the ZBA said, no, you built this as a single family. I think there's 5 or 6 bedrooms on the upper floors there, along with I think a 2-car garage. So this is what happens. This is not smart growth, and this is what the town, we don't want this type of development where you maximize the lot for developers' financial gain at the expense of the people that live in that neighborhood. It increases parking and it affects the quality of life. And then just one last thing before I wrap this up.
How are they permitted to do that? I mean, is it by zoning?
The table 2 of the zoning bylaws allows that height to be, I think that's 35 feet, I believe.
Right.
So you've basically got this huge house, I think less than 6,000 square foot lot.
Right, that's a very small lot. There is
Oh,
no
yeah.
space on it.
Yeah, so this is the type of growth that we don't want to see. I mean, growth is inevitable, but it needs to be smart growth, and this is definitely not something that we want. You definitely don't want this next door to you, and we don't want this in our neighborhoods because it's just
But like you
overwhelming.
said, this is permitted by an unelected board that,
No, this meets the zoning bylaws
As a
approved by
single
town.
family.
Yeah, it's a
as
single
a single
family right
family.
now.
But
But
to be
if they want to
three
go to 3,
They would need some variances from ZBA, and ZBA denied them that. So
fine. Okay.
the application's been withdrawn.
Good.
So, but now you have this huge single-family house, which is probably appropriate on a half acre of land,
Right.
but not here on School Street. And then I just have one more item. It's 44 Maple Street. This is, this is 44 Maple. So this was before the selectmen on Tuesday to erect some staging. They're going to build a 3-story, they're going to add a 3rd story and a mansard roof to the top of this building. I believe the 2nd story is going to be removed and redesigned with some setback. There's going to be 10 single 1-bedroom units in this building. And the construction will be from September of this year until April of next year. And supposedly all the equipment and cranes and stuff will be in the back, which is very narrow. And again, this is not part of the overlay. This is what type of development that the overlay wants to control.
Prevent.
Yeah. Well, they want to have more say on it. That, we get these huge 30 or this one's going to be 45 feet high. So you'll look like Rand Tool Street in Beverly, where you look down the street and it's like a canyon. So. The overlay districts are actually can be a positive thing if they're managed correctly. You have commercial on the first floor and then housing.
But I thought that the 40R zoning, the overlay, basically would permit something like this to go up 3 stories high.
Yeah, but there's also setbacks and there's other kinds of constraints.
And there is no setback. There is nothing in the back that you can, move to, because there's not even enough parking around there.
Yeah.
It's all street parking. All right, any more clips?
No, that's all I
That's it.
had.
All right, so now what we have is we have a planning department update, basically, that they're proceeding to discuss and debate the appropriate zoning or appropriate size and dimensions similar to what they have done to the other end of Maple Street.
Yeah, the hot water.
The hot what. Now, the problem I have, and the question I have is what have we learned from the hot watt development proposals that we're going to apply to the rest, from there to the square? We haven't experienced any developments that have been proposed because they're waiting. They're
Yeah.
waiting for something to happen.
Well, the overlay will go to the town meeting in December in a special town meeting for zoning.
But it's probably going to be as real as what 40R is right now on the hot wad area.
Yeah, it'll be similar, yeah. I
It'll
think what they're doing now is, like tonight, they had a workshop and invited all the downtown businesses to attend to kind of get a well-rounded input from everyone, the business owners, residents, just people, residents.
Are there any public meetings that are going to be held?
Yeah, there are
or-
workshops, and they're going to take probably the rest of the summer off, and then re-energize
Regroup,
themselves
yeah.
in September. But it's important that everyone have the opportunity to offer input.
But in reality, the planning department is who is pushing all of this.
Yeah, it's difficult. The developers have the resources to really come at us with they want to maximize all their projects.
Absolutely.
Well, but this
So-
is, to me, this is one of the basics, reasons for the overlay idea, is that basically they open up a whole area with very few restrictions. But multiple story.
Well, it's going to happen
There's
anyway,
no,
by right.
There's no real limits on parking. It's multiple story, it's multiple residential or condos. It's, hey, fellas, come on in and develop something. You tell us what you want to put here. And that's what it boils down to.
Who's going to control that, Matt? Do you have any idea of?
In terms of, yeah, I think the planning or the land use department and the planning board will have more control with the overlay in place. Right now, it's zoned C1 and C1A, which is commercial. Residential is not allowed in C1.
It's by permit, right?
Yeah, so I think we'll have more control. There'll be more give and take. Today, the developer can come in, like if you look at that 44 Maple, they were able to come in and originally it was for 12
Single bedroom.
single bedroom units. So that's quite a change in use for what's there today.
Well, I know that the owners of those buildings have been clamoring right along because they want to add residentials up on top. Right now, they cannot do it according to the zoning.
Yeah.
What they wanted to do is make one bedroom, two bedroom, whatever bedrooms they wanted to put on top of the second story. And that would have served the purpose. But now what we're allowing them to do is allowing them to go up 2, 3, 3.5 stories, because I think the height is 55 feet. And they did that with the furniture building that's just down or across the street,
Yeah,
basically.
across the street, yeah.
And that's 4 stories high, I believe. And that is an imposing building. And what I'm afraid of, and I've stated this over and over again, is that we're going to become Cabot Street or Rantoul Street
Yep.
with the wind tunnel. At least in Beverly, they have the streets that are
Wide enough.
100 feet wide, and we have 40-foot wide streets.
We're
So
going to become cities.
well, you know what? Danvers has been going towards a city-type government and city-type control over the years anyway. So what they have done is we should have a city charter, because whatever the town committees want to do or impose some restrictions, the selectmen and the zoning board, negates them.
Well, I think that's something that the people should look at more as to whether they really want to go to a city.
That's right. No, that's something that's coming. It's just a matter of time. Right now, it's being controlled by a limited group of people, but people have to get involved. These meetings should be attended. We are going to continue our discussion. We have two more shows scheduled for July 11th and July 25th, I believe. 25th, and we'll take August off altogether. So we'll meet back on July 11th, bring us up to date on some of these economic developments, the population growth, and some issues in regard to the water and sewer rates, because that's going to become very clear by then. So, Danvers, keep watching. We are going to present the show as clearly as possible, but you have to understand that this is something that nobody wants to discuss in the newspapers. So, good night, Danvers. Thank you very much. Matt?
Good night, Danvers.
Good night.